Okay, greedy. Alright, eins, zwei, drei.
Dude, so you met with Toph?
Yeah!
How was that?
Were you on his podcast too?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. He did some rad people on his podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna start. Ready?
Yeah, dude.
Okay. Darrick, my man, it has been too long. Let's see, did we meet on Instagram?
Yeah, I forget exactly why we met on Instagram.
Maria connected us. She's like, you
Yeah.
need to meet Darrick. And then we went to dinner like 2.5 years ago. And
Yeah, up in Sugar House.
we got deep real quick.
Yeah, in front of everybody, right? Like, it was funny. We're in the middle of this big-ass restaurant, right? And just talking all shit woo.
Oh shit, instantly. We got really deep and juicy. And I just feel like you're doing so much beautiful work right now that the planet needs. I mean, you really are making men great again as a man who's coaching men. And I really kind of want to dive into your story real quick and like, why are you doing what you're doing? It feels like you feel so called to help men, and you're solid in your purpose, and it's so beautiful. So I kind of just want to know your story. And
Yeah, thank you, sister. So truth of the matter is that I started to attend a lot of different workshops happening in Salt Lake Valley, and it could be anything, right? Goal setting workshops, meditation workshops, whatever it is. And every single one of these workshops that I was attending, I started to look around and observe that a lot of what I was seeing is that it was all female based. I was the only fucking guy there, the only man there. And so I was like, well, what about the men? Like, what is it? What's in it for the men here, right? And that's what really prompted me to really start looking into, well, what support do men have? What education? What resources? What do we have out there to help support men in their growth? Not knowing what I was really getting myself into, because at the time my demographic of clientele was all women based. Mostly because women are far more open to sharing their feelings, talking about their past, being more vulnerable, and then also wanting and sparking change. A big cultural issue that we have with men is that, and you've heard this, you've seen this on TV shows, you've seen this on movies, is that we have a very hard time asking for help. Very difficult time, because we need to be that strong provider that provides and gives everything to our family, to our friends, to our life. And we can't ask for help because it's shown as a sign of weakness. And so from there I was like, you know what, like, as much as I love working with women and helping develop women, there's so many women empowerment coaches out there. I'll just use that as an umbrella scale. And so I really started to dive into, well, what is it that men need right now? What is the pain points? What are they struggling with? What do they want most out of life more than anything? And man, it's been a journey. It's been a fucking fun journey ever since. But that's where I do majority of my masculine embodiment work, men's work, group men's work. Also, even now, like, I literally just, and the world's changing. It's so fucking crazy, sister. So I just literally signed on a client a month ago, and he's 19 years old. My demographic's normally 25 to 45. But a 19-year-old, I can never say no to anything like that, right? Because if you look back, when I was 19, I wasn't doing any of this work. Watching Sports Center for the 50th time, not knowing where I was going, just staring at a ceiling, feeling empty inside, lost, didn't know what my purpose was, just thought I had to work to make a living, right? Whatever the case is. And so, yeah, that's what really sparked me into that. And then a lot of my mentors were also planting the seeds of, Darrick, why don't you do men's work? We need men, especially in Salt Lake City, where it's very conservative, not as many open-minded individuals as you'd see in other areas. We need a bigger support system. So that's what kicked it off.
cool. I love that. One, I love the fact that you have such a growth mindset. Like, you are seeking mentorship. You're seeking to learn. You're seeking to grow. And I feel like that makes a leader, because you're a seeker. And so the fact that you have mentors being like nudging you in your direction is so beautiful, that you as a man have the vulnerability to, you're embracing your inner feminine, because we are the yin and the yang.
Absolutely.
And so the fact that you as a man have embraced your inner feminine, you're not like in denial being like, no, I'm all man. That's ego, right? And you've embraced that, and it's led you to clarity in your purpose, and I think that's so beautiful. So what are you seeing that men are really struggling with? What's the problem on the planet that men need to hear and need to understand?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start off big, and then I'll trickle it down in to dive a little bit deeper. But we have a culture that isn't as healthy as it could be, and I see that as a pro and a con. We need, like you said, the balance between both, in multiple areas, and the gray in between. That's what life's all about. And a big thing that I'm seeing with men is that they are not in a position to lead. They don't know how to lead. They have a very difficult time being in a position to make decisions that's going to impact not only themselves but also the collective of all humanity in multiple different areas. And an example of this is when I get off of a strategy call or get off a call with any type of man in regards to someone that's interested in my one-on-one coaching or my programs, 95% of the time they want to set up a follow-up call, and there's two things that happen. One, they don't show up, or they do show up, right, and then they make up some excuse as to why they can't, right, or that they feel like they can just do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And my job is not to convince them to work with me. Mm-hmm. That's not my ideal client. My job is to help them see their inner power, their divine purpose, and live that divine purpose as much as they possibly can. Another thing that you also see is men would say, "Oh, I gotta check with the boss. I gotta check with the wife." Right? Now,
oh gosh.
Now, I'm not completely against this, right? Because again, open and effective communication is key to any relationship. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't even have to be romantic. However, I think in that type of situation, your woman is looking for you to make that fucking decision.
Yes.
She is wanting you to lead. She's wanting you to decide then and there. And if at the end of the day, if it's a money issue, if it's a lack type of issue, whatever that is, it's always going to work itself out. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling I tell men this all the time, is that your woman is going to love you more in depth, meaning like she's gonna feel your heart more than she ever has before. She's gonna get turned on because of it, and she's also gonna be looking to you with those eyes and that vision of like, this motherfucker knows what he wants and he's getting it. That's attractive.
It is.
And so what you're seeing nowadays is that there's so many women that are elevating, expanding, and growing so drastically and so quickly. Men do not know what to do with them. That's what I'm seeing in a lot of the struggles with my clientele, as well as with people that are reaching out to me, is that their women, their partner, are leaving them because they're not growing, and women are growing at such a quick rate. Mm-hmm. Men do not know how to keep up with it. And it can be something as small as, I'm diving into wanting to do more spiritual work, or I want to lead a podcast, or if I want to start my own business, right, as like an organization assistant, or whatever the case is. Men are just sitting by, like waking up, right? They wake up, they take a shit, they eat some breakfast, they go to work, they come home, they watch TV, they go to sleep, they wake up, they take a shit, they eat some breakfast, they do the same thing over and again. So men need a lot of help in regards to identifying a sound and structured routine that's going to set them up for success, but also ties into their specific purpose. And that's a big part of it, is that for men to look deep within their hearts, if we really think about this, for men to look deep within their hearts, it is it's the most vulnerable thing that a man can do. But two, because of that vulnerability and because of what society teaches us, they see that as the largest weakness that there ever is. So, in a whole, men need to ask for help. Men need to look within their heart and find their true purpose. Men have opportunity to identify and understand what masculinity even is. Also, get a firmer understanding of what femininity is within their role. Because again, you need both, right? You need both to function. And it's so funny. Here's an example for you. Mm-hmm. So many men look up to bodybuilders. Mm-hmm. Well, what are these bodybuilders doing, right? They're putting in the work. They're eating a lot of food. They're really honed in on their physique. So when a bodybuilder is posing in the mirror, is that masculine or feminine? It's feminine, right? Because they're in flow, right? The way that they move on stage, the way that they transition from front to back to top to bottom, that's complete feminine flow. But yet, our society sees that as, that's one badass, tough motherfucker. that's not what masculinity is in that case, right? Because again, that's the feminine coming in, the hard work, the dedication, the goals, the striving, the discipline. That's still very much part of feminine, but that's a far more masculine trait, right? But we don't know. Men don't know what it is. And here's the history of it real quick before we move on, because this is a juicy topic, right? Is if you think back to World War II, when a lot of men had to be drafted off to war, right? A lot of them went off to war, and as fathers, as men of our society, they either came back completely emotionally distressed, or they didn't come back at all because they were killed in the war. So when men left, they left and they took a lot of the learnings and teachings from our ancestors that were brought into this with them. So when they came back, they weren't father figures like they should have been. They weren't leaders like men could be in that situation. So from then on, you literally see where women were stepping up, right? They were cleaning the house. They were doing the chores. They were providing for their families because they had a lot of men that were coming back from this war, rightfully so, completely just emotionally, mentally, even physically distraught, and they couldn't do anything with it. They didn't know what to do with it. And remember, back in these days, counseling, therapy, asking for help was a complete taboo, right? You were so weak if you asked for help, and that's completely transitioned into our world today, where we lost that father. We lost that father figure from 60 years ago, 70 years ago to now, and therefore we don't have anybody to teach us what it's like to be a man and be a true provider in both divine feminine and masculine in every capacity.
Okay, I love that. So what does it look like when a man really is stepping into his power? What does that look like for a man, and what does that look like for a woman?
Yeah, I think this is a huge topic, because this can be different for everybody, right? It's not just a one size fits all, and that's the beauty of life. But if you look at it from a man's perspective, right? If I was a man sitting in a situation where there was a very flowing woman that's completely in her feminine, what they would look like is like a tree trunk, right? Very sound, very very secure, very whole, very sturdy and reliable. Like that tree trunk isn't going anywhere. That's the masculine side of it. But if you look deeper into the feminine of how that plays a role, is the masculine in that case of the tree trunk is completely rooted into Mother Earth. Mother Earth, right? Which provides a very feminine presence. And so what we do is we gain a lot of our energy, a lot of our intuition, a lot of the epiphanies, if you will, from our Mother Earth, and that energy flows directly through us, directly into our heart. So while a man may look on the exterior as very sound, strong, sturdy, and reliable, on the inside, right, he is very loving, caring, even soft to the touch, and open to any emotion that is coming through, and even willing to speak about it and express it in every capacity.
And how can, ideally, a woman help a man feel safe in being tuned in to that divine feminine, Mother Gaia Earth energy?
Yeah,
his heart space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I get this question often, right? The best way that a woman can do this, right? And I guess I know that this is very binary in this space, but again, it translates into every aspect because the yin, the yang. But the best way that a woman can help a man get into his feminine and even more into his masculine is through support and understanding. Okay. Now, an example of this, we talked a little bit about this before we jumped on, but emasculation. Right? This is not something that works over or comes through very well. An example of this is I was actually in Walmart a year or two ago, and I was in the aisle of getting some butter, right? And I saw this woman, and it was she was there with her husband and her son, and he's like, "Hey babe, do we need any butter?" And she goes, I don't know. He's like, "Oh, last I looked in the fridge, I didn't see any butter." She goes, "So if you open the fridge and you didn't see any butter, why the fuck are you asking me if we need any butter? Grab some butter, because obviously we need it." So you saw him in his masculine. Remember the tree trunk, right? He's sturdy, he's reliable, he's there. And that moment when she completely just cut off his balls and put them in her purse, his demeanor completely collapsed. The sad part about this that goes back to the history that we do have is that his son was sitting there in the front part of the cart, and he was able to witness all of this. this. So now his son is witnessing the fact that this woman in this situation is emasculating, taking, cutting off his dad's balls, putting them in the bag. So now who is the boss? Who is the kid going to listen to now, right? And we see a lot of that. So another healthy example of what that may look like is, babe, I don't know either. I don't know if we have anybody. Let's just get it just in case.
Yeah.
Partnership, collaboration, connectivity, effective communication. And oftentimes, what a woman can definitely do for a man in those situations is just have an open container that is completely safe, but also vulnerable. Oftentimes in life, we have to lead with vulnerability in order to allow other people to open up themselves to share that vulnerability. What women can do is they can show men that it's safe and it's perfectly okay for them to open up and express and share their feelings. Okay? Oftentimes you see this on like TikTok and Instagram and all that bullshit, right? Where where women are calling men pussies and they're soft and they're weak, and then the men you see, they get their chest all puffed up, their chin all chucked up. That's completely unhealthy, right? A true queen would never treat a man or even a king in that way, right? She would create a safe container that allows him to not only speak and express, but also share the deepest and darkest of his heart and in his soul that he could ever share.
Well, in that way, there's no suppression being built within the relationship, because what I cringed earlier when you said the guy was like, I need to ask the boss. I cringed because it's like, it should be a king and a queen, not just a queen and you're the little bitch. It's equality, right? It's open communication, it's open flow, and to support each other in such a royal, respectful, understanding way is where it stays healthy and it stays long term. Because the more resentment builds up, the harder it is to undo, right? And so then the guy's building resentment of like, what man wants to feel like a little biatch?
Well, especially in our society, right? I use my background in construction often in this case is like, you can't be a bitch, you can't be soft, right? You cut your finger, you get a big gash on your arm, you better just bandage that up and keep working. That's not the way it should be, in my opinion. Now again, we got to be understanding that we also need that, because that also fuels a much healthier approach. It gives us the awareness, it gives us the enlightenment that is needed, right? It's like living in our world now where so many people are like, be the light, be woke. It's like, okay, if everybody was woke and we lived in utopia, would we grow? We wouldn't. We need the opposite. We need the gray, right? And in this type of situation, we've been living so far in the opposite that we don't even know what it's like to be in a healthy situation.
So true. It's like foreign to us.
And it's so interesting. I was thinking of this as I was driving up here, is that like we often think like, and we hear this especially as people that, we do a lot of self-study, but you've heard the term, like we're not learning, we're just remembering what's already been given to us. But in that fact is like, I thought of that, it's false. No matter how many multiple lifetimes that you do have, right? What is the purpose of you knowing it all and just coming into this life to experiencing just to remember it? What are you learning? There's no process of what you're going to gain in that situation, right? And when I say you gaining, it's when you gain, the collective gains, the humanity gains, right? So we're always going to be learning something more and more while remembering what we've learned from our past lives and past experiences. And so there's a tremendous opportunity for us to literally come together, right? And work together in these cases, because that's where we both know this is ego drives so many motherfuckers, right? And it's so easy for us to dive into that. Let's be honest. Like, think of positivity versus negativity. You need like a negative thought, right? You'll say you have a negative thought. You need 3 positive just to counteract the negative thought. That's how powerful negativity is.
True. And
so what we're doing is if you think of that on a collective scale with masculinity, femininity, and just our collective, that's what we're trying to rebalance as much as we possibly can. That's why you see, 12 to 23-year-old individuals, they're woke, quote unquote woke in that situation. They know more, they're more enlightened, they're more into self-development, self-improvement. We're over here like, we weren't doing that shit. You heard me say at the beginning. And so it's so interesting to see how the collective is transitioning and moving in, as well as the people that are trying to fight so hard to keep it the way that it was.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, and I think it's our generation that's really doing the conscious work to do the peeling back process of the toxicity that we've built up from our ancestors. Like you look at our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, our parents, and they're stuck in this mold that's just toxic in a way. And we're here doing the work, doing the grimy work of like, okay, let's go back there. Let's go back to when we were a kid and we did see mama take dad's balls and put it in her purse and she never gave them back.
Yeah.
But you know, we're so young absorbing that's our norm. But we need to realize and remember that that's just not how it is, and it should be. It should be progressive. It should be king and queen respectfully communicating, and that's what kids, I think, these days are hopefully going to be seeing more than we did. We're all confused. We're all confused until this comes to our awareness, and so that's why I have you on here to bring the awareness of how to step into the king and the queen power. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to call it out, a few resources that you can jump on right off the bat, right, for men and women is
Okay.
one book. It's called The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. It's something that is tremendously powerful. I recommend it to majority of my female clients. It's going to give you a deeper insight of true masculinity, and that alone is going to give you insight of how you can support a man better, right? It talks about all sorts of things in regards to creating that container, creating that space. How does a man think in any type of situation that's coming up? How does he really share his heart? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And then the opposite side is a book called The Queen's Code, The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong. Now, for anyone listening to this, especially the women, I only recommend this book for you if you have true positive intent, because it literally and I love Alison when she calls this out. It's like the second chapter of the book. She says, if you have any bad intent, or if you're going to use this for any malicious intent, just fucking throw my book away right now.
Cool.
Because she calls women out like crazy in the way that it's needed in that situation, but that's what David Data also does in the masculine space, right? So I highly recommend men even reaching out and reading this book as well, because it's going to help give them better insight of what a true fucking queen really looks like. An example of that is, we talked about this, but when a woman gives a man her power, she understands, a queen understands that she also gains the same amount of power. We live in a society where people are so power hungry, especially after this whole political shit that just happened in 2020 and everything that's going on, right? Power is something that is obviously incredibly needed, but what does that look like from a healthy scale, from a non-healthy scale, right? And so from a king and a queen perspective, it's truly unity as one. Like you said, we see each other as equals, but also in the sense of your gifts are yours, mine are mine. How do they cohabitate? How do they come together and work together for the larger collective, right? And that's what also I speak about this in the coaching industry very often, because there's coaches out there where internally, and they don't say this, right, but internally they're like, I'm not going to refer these people to the other coach. I'm pushing away my clientele. Like, why the fuck would I do that? And I'm like, if your gifts don't serve them, the best thing you can do for them is to send them a referral, to give them a referral to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's another form of, I know it all. I need all the power. I need all the clients, which is all
ego.
completely coming from the ego and the shadow that they're currently living. But it's hard for people to see that. That's where surrounding yourself with like-minded people, they help you see what you don't see. That's what a king does for a queen, and a queen does for a king.
They help each other remember.
Always. And the king and queen also understand that if I'm getting feedback from the queen, she's doing it with the most loving, positive, and purposeful intent. She's not out to get me, because she knows that if she brings me down, she's bringing herself down.
Yeah, and the family unit down.
100%. The collective.
Yeah. Because I think ultimate change on the planet starts within a family unit. It starts within a family.
Well, let's think about it. It's just like, we're family.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
we're all connected.
Yeah, just
but
like,
it starts within your own home.
Oh, 100%. In your own home. And this is a good conversation, right? Your own home is your heart. because the safest place that we will ever have is our own heart. And it's a beautiful thing. Just like me not seeing you for the last 2.5 years and me coming and being like, what's up, dude? Kick it off just like normal, right? That's family.
Yeah.
And so I think that we have a great opportunity of connecting more to our heart. And you see this in the spiritual community very often, right? Grounding practices, meditation, body work, mindset work, anything you can think of that comes into this. It's just a matter of us constantly doing it. But it's also okay for us to fall off the wagon, right? Because that's part of the journey.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Inhale, exhale, ebbs and flows. It's not always going to be just the yin or just the yang. It's a dance, right? You got to fall off in order to appreciate being on.
Yeah, I see it I've used this example multiple times, right? And I'm going to use Utah geography as an example of this. So it's 400 miles from Salt Lake to St. George, or Salt Lake to Vegas, right?
Okay.
450 miles or whatever it is. Think of it this way: when you start in Salt Lake, and you're driving, right? You're moving, and you're going, and the next thing you know, like you get a flat tire in Nephi, right? Well, just because you got that flat tire and you fix that flat tire, where do you start again? Are you still in Nephi, or are you back in Salt Lake? Well, how the fuck would you get back to Salt Lake, right? Why would you have to start all the way over? And it's a common misconception that we have as humans, is that when we fall off the wagon, we have to start completely over.
Right.
No, you're still in Nephi.
Right.
Pick up where you are, pick up all your things that you need, whoever's with you, whatever's with you, and you continue to move on.
Right.
We often think of all these setbacks that are coming into our life, and we see this in relationships very, very often, right? Where it's like, no, I fucked up, I said the wrong thing, I cheated, I sent this dirty text, or whatever the case may be, right? It's like, that can be seen as a setback, sure, right? But it's actually a progressive way of you moving forward.
Right.
Because when you really learn the lesson, are you ever going to really do that again?
Right.
That's progressive.
Yes.
And it's so funny because there's a lot of commentary out there of, you've heard this before, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, right? And some people are being like, no, it's about the destination. It's like, once you reach that destination, what the fuck are you gonna do? Are you done?
Yeah.
There's no finish line in life.
Yeah.
Even when you die, there's no finish line, right? So it's just interesting how people will also do that in their relationships. They give up, right? They get complacent, they get content. And then that's where you see, and you go, and you see online, and it's on Facebook, it's on everywhere, it's in circles of where women and men are even gossiping, and they're like, he won't do this, she won't do that, no matter what I do, he won't take out the fucking trash, right? Or whatever it is. It's like these petty little things, and it's like, where's your stake? Like, where's your responsibility in this? Are you truly showing up as a queen?
Yeah.
Or in the case of Allison Armstrong, are you a frog farmer? Frog farmer meaning you're turning all of these princes into frogs. You're teaching them that they're not worthy to have a queen because you're manipulating the situation. You're fucking up the experience in the sense of it's so negative, it's so toxic that you're not really showing up the way that we should be showing up. Men do the same fucking thing. When men are only out to get pussy, they're tarnishing and they're harming what love can really look like for that woman,
right,
or that partner even, right? So it goes both ways in multiple different facets and forms.
Yeah.
And that's where the collective absolutely needs to step up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dang, that hit me deep because I know when I was dating a lot, everything is so like fast food. There's fast food dating, there's literally fast food. Everything is just so easy and quick, and it's a quick fix, and it's really putting everyone in instant gratification. Like, we've lost the art of good things take time, And so dating was really hard because no one knew how to commit. And I've learned within the last year and a half, commitment is freedom. Committing to yourself, committing in relationships, committing to whatever you gotta do, you commit. And that is freedom in itself. Because with so many options these days in this day and age of the Aquarius, where there's so much information, you have Google, you have all these books, you have podcasts, you have all these social medias, it's over freaking whelming. And so we're all confused and we lack commitment because there's so many options. It's like, meditate, pray, like get clear on your direction and fucking commit. Like, just plow that path.
Yeah.
And so for me, dating was hard because a man didn't know what he wanted. And then, you know, we would be intimate or whatever, and then he'd be gone. That, like, traumatized me.
Yeah.
I think as a woman, I want to feel safe. As a woman, I want a man who knows what he wants. As a man, I want someone who does know his purpose, who is in tune with his heart space, because his heart space is the most intelligent space. And that makes me feel safe. That makes my chakras feel safe and open and flowing, and it puts me, when I'm with a man who knows what he wants and he's solid and rooted, it brings out my best version. And so dating was so traumatizing in the sense that, yeah, it is messed up. Like, we do need your work so bad right now because it's creating more traumas. And, you know, like, I'm going to therapy to heal all these things and whatnot, but I am remembering, I'm dating a guy right now, and he is very in tune with his divine masculine, and he's healing me. Like, we're literally healing each other just by us being us. And it's so beautiful. So when you say the heart is in the home, if you have two people who are embracing their divine power and knowing, like, okay, you have your part and I have my part, and I'm not going to try to take away your part, and I'm not going to try to be your part, and we're going to flow together, like, me and my boyfriend right now, like, we are so full that we have so much more to give in every outlet of our lives. I'm podcasting more. Like, I just leave so fulfilled. It's literally magical. I only saw it in the movies, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's a real energy exchange, and it's so abundant. It's literally of God. It's so beautiful. And I desire for everyone to find this, because we would all be so much more happy and fulfilled and on alignment of our purpose. Like, as humanity, we would become stronger. Like, love really is strength. Love really is healing. It really goes back to love.
Oh, always will, right? Because love is the highest and healthiest emotion that we will have in this existence. So a few things that you touched on, and again, it all correlates with what we talked about. A dear mentor of mine, Mikhail Rose, she speaks about, why do we think about having a cup half full or half empty when we can have a cup that's always overflowing?
Yeah.
And anybody can take from that overflow. It's the same concept that you just described in a relationship setting, right? I see it as a cake, right? Whether you've baked a cake or not. And what this looks like is, you gotta first get the ingredients, get the powder, get the milk, get the eggs, get the water, get whatever it is that you're making for these ingredients. You have to mix them, right? Thoroughly, so there's no clumping, there's no powder just, anywhere. And then from there you pour it into a pan. Okay, from the pan you put it into the oven, you bake it for a certain amount of time at a certain amount of heat. You pull it out, and can you put the frosting on immediately? No, because it'll melt the fuck off.
Right.
So what you have to do is you have to wait for it to cool. It has to harden, it needs to be firm. Once that's done, then you put on the frosting, you put on the condiments, you put on the toppings. The frosting is sex. And so often than not, all we're doing is dipping our finger in the frosting before we even get to making the cake. And so what happens in those situations is that, and this is on both men and women, right? Because men would be more pushy and aggressive in this type of situation, whether it's like physically or not physically, right? Because it can be through any form of manipulation. But women also see that as, this is the way that it is. No, it is not the way that it is. You are a queen, stand the fuck up, have your boundaries, right? Have your line in the sand, and hold the fuck out. So when men are coming and going, they're asking themselves often, well, why is this happening to me? I just want a good guy. Well, are you patient enough to have a good guy actually come into your life, build that cake with them, and then eventually get to the frosting? Because I'm telling you what, the frosting is not the highlight of that relationship. It also goes in regards to what you were talking about of the trauma. And this is obviously a very delicate topic. But when it comes to trauma, even sexual trauma on like the deepest route, the divine masculine will prime his queen before any penetration ever takes place. And I'm talking physical penetration. Because what he does is he creates the container, he creates the primer to penetrate her heart before he ever penetrates her pussy. Ever. But what happens is we've been in so much trauma and had so many traumatic events that our heart is like a birdcage with 50 locks on it. And we're not letting these motherfuckers in anymore because they've already come and gone and they've already got what they wanted and they left me for good. Now I'm not worthy and now I'm not enough and now I'm empty as shit.
Yep.
So you see how this just spirals completely deep down, right? And so what we need to do in those situations is create a very healthy cake forming process. We need to be patient in that process, but we also need to hold our own boundaries.
Yes.
Example of this that you see often is codependency.
Yes.
So if my queen is off doing a podcast with another man, what ego comes in at that point, right? Is it trusting? Is she living out her purpose, right? Am I supporting her in her purpose? Am I seeing the bigger picture, right? Is my own trauma coming up? Am I getting counseling for my own trauma? Am I speaking to other people that can help me through that trauma? Like, again, it spirals, right? And what you often see, and this is another huge struggle, to go back to that question really quickly, is men put their purpose in their woman. So what happens is they'll get into a relationship and all goals, all destinations, all pathways, all boats sailing in a direction that they were going in completely stall and stop because now their woman is their number one priority. That's unhealthy.
Yeah. This is for women too.
Yes. Their purpose should always be their number one priority. Their queen will always play a role into that purpose.
Yes.
And so often what happens is this goes back to the main point that we started with, is, Darrick, I'm gonna have to call you back. I have to go talk to the boss. Oh, okay, well, go talk to your boss, whatever you need to do, right? Which is a clear sign for me that they're not ready.
Yeah.
But in that situation, what happens is he goes back and he's like, hey, babe, I just got off the phone with Darrick. I'm super excited about it. You know, he charges this much. Can we move forward with it? And she's like, what the fuck? Like, make your damn decision.
Yeah.
Right? That's where all of the decisions is being put onto the woman, which again goes all the way back to World War II, where women stood up, they stepped up, they were providing, they were moving, and now you see how this transitions and this plays a valid role in our day-to-day society now.
Yeah.
And now you also see, and you know me, I'm a huge advocate of women empowerment. We need the women, right? The women also need the men. And that's where like masculinity was seen as like a swear word for a short time, and still is to certain degrees. But in that case, that's where you're also seeing women, they're like, okay, now we have more power than we ever have, because again, they're growing, expanding, developing. And it's like, there's a lot of women that know what to do with it, but there's also a lot of women that don't know what to do with it. And so we're using that as a toxic way of controlling situations, or using it against other people, or even hurting men in that type of situation as well. Just as much as men have hurt women, women have also hurt men in those situations. And so now you see the full circle spectrum of why I do what I do, and why I love to help men identify more of what their true purpose is, because you have to start with that purpose, because it always comes down to three things: health, relationships, and money. That's what all humans care about. Those three categories always funnels into that, right? And oftentimes men, they forget about one or multiple or even all of them, and they're lost and they have no direction. And all the woman does is she comes in and she's like, it's all right, he doesn't know what he's doing, that's okay, I just want his dick. She gets his dick, and then he ends up hurting her, right? Or she finds another dick elsewhere and she hurts him, or whatever the case is, you know what I mean? And it's so surface level that we have a huge opportunity to dive so much deeper into the core.
Oh my gosh. Praise the Lord. There were so many mic drops within that. So, what I heard, to sum it up, is we need to find solid ground within ourselves of being clear on what we want, what our purpose is, and what our boundaries are. And building that cake. That's a solid foundation that I'm talking about. And then you have two people who have done that, who have gotten clear on that, and then they will then attract someone on that same vibration.
100%. And we always do, right? We always attract what we're putting out there.
Yep.
And it's funny because I used to say this. I said, when two whole people come together, then it'll be the best relationship. Are we ever really whole completely? No.
No.
We're never meant to be. But to your point that you just made with your boyfriend in your relationship, he's helping you find more of who you are, feel more safe in that situation, which is probably something you've never had to that degree.
Yeah.
And now you're both growing together. You're literally on this soul path together.
Yeah.
And obviously it's purposeful because it's happening. And now you're growing and expanding and moving into a life that maybe you thought you never did.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing is, like, when we think of love, because it's so powerful, we always think of like sex or something physical, but what about the deep-rooted heart-to-heart connection? Let's just talk about this real quick though. With sex, so many people dog like missionary style, right?
Yeah.
Think of this though. If you're having sex in missionary style, what does that mean? That means both heart-centered capacities align with all of your chakras are completely open and flowing.
Right.
That's why after sex, let's say it's a one-night stand, after sex, you have that feeling, and I don't know about you, but I've had this feeling where I'm just like, oh fuck, is she gonna break my heart? Because what happened is your bird cage opened up, you let her in, you had a very good time, if you will, a very deep-rooted heart connection outside of the physical, even though we only think it's physical. And then once that's done, we put the bird cage back on, and we're like, oh shit, we need to prepare for battle because we're gonna get hurt, because that's what's happened in the past.
Yes.
Men and women, we both go through this in every capacity. Our job is to remember how strong love is and to reopen our own bird cages, because if we don't, we're going to continue to attract the same type of people, no matter what vibrational level they are on, with the intent that we have in that current capacity, right? So our job is to love again, to move through the heartbreak and the heartache and show that we can have what we truly deserve. And deserve is always played with multiple different people. They're like, Darrick, like if they don't put in the work, they don't deserve it. And I'm like, I highly disagree with you very much, because we all came to this earth, right? We're like, what, 1 in 400 trillion opportunity of being here. And we came to this earth to experience life. Everybody deserves it, but are they going to get it? That's their choice.
Yeah.
Right? If they put in the work, then yeah, they'll hopefully eventually get there. They all deserve it. Them not putting in the work doesn't mean that you take away what they deserve.
Right.
Right? But we have such a huge opportunity of teaching society, right? I'm still learning myself in multiple areas of what can I do to show up more as a king, to show up more as a warrior, to show up more as a lover and a magician, right? And what does that look like in regards to like my queen supporting me and how I can support her in this life?
Right. You're so great. So in flow. There's so many points I want to hit on. I think I kind of want to rattle some feathers and like get into the problem with feminism. Feminism,
yeah, you got it. You got it.
That sounds so good. And just seeing so many women on Instagram disempowering their man and holding their balls and squeezing them and being like, I'm going to be CEO. I'm going to have kids after I have a successful business. Like, my man's going to stay at home and watch the kids if I do have kids. And I really just want to get to the primal roots of the masculine and feminine. As a woman, I'm very in tune with my masculine. Obviously, I'm freaking wearing combat boots and I speak like a man. But I am fully embracing the fact that I want to create a beautiful sacred space. I want to create my little oasis on this planet. I want to create a home with my unique intuitiveness, my unique creativity as a woman, and creating the space for my family. And I do have the ability to multitask as a woman of creating a home, creating a child, bearing a child, and nurturing that child with my intuitive instincts. And so for me to embrace that feels so good, and it's something that's going down the drain, and I think it's a traditional way for a reason. And I'm not saying that you can't go work and you can't start your own business and you can't have it all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's an extremist way of the feminists, and I just want to shut that shit right down because it's bullshit and it's so disempowering and it's confusing everyone. It's totally taking away like God's plan, God's way. There is a way, and we're losing that. It's like creating such confusion. So people are just like, why am I so unhappy? Why am I have such high anxiety? Why do I take these antidepressants? Like I'm not fulfilled. Well, let's get to the core of it. Let's get back to the traditional ways.
Yeah. Well, what if that is God's plan? Right? Again, life is all about navigating as well. Why would we need to navigate if we're not confused?
True.
And so that's all part of the plan, hence the reason why we have free will to make our own decisions of what we do in this life. And I think that this is a big thing because not only in the feminist aspect of it, but also in the masculine, right? Again, I talked about you can't be weak as a man, right? Like you literally have other men being like, oh, he's too feminine. He's too weak. He's like, he's too in touch with his feelings.
Right.
And it's like, but that's what you want. No, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we just sat down and had like 5 beers together and you just poured your heart out to me. I think that's what you want.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's the same type of situation. I think that's where we need more education around what does it look like to be empowered in your feminine, empowered in your masculine, and how we can do it without taking it away from other people. Because when we only want to take it away from other people, we are lacking in ourselves. Back to your point, we are unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And we may always be unfulfilled to a certain extent. However, why not stop, pause, and take a break and say, why am I trying to take this away?
Right.
Because that's where the darkness comes in that we talked about, right? The light, the dark, the gray. That's where the darkness comes in, and it's like, no, you're doing great. Just keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing is right. Mm-hmm. Is it really right? And it's so interesting. Like, what is right? What is wrong?
Right.
You define what that is.
Right.
Like, the Bible doesn't do that for you. Society, well, depending on who you are, may do that for you if you listen to society or not. Truly, you are the one that gets to define what this is.
Right.
So while women can be all empowering, absolutely, we also need the men to be all empowering in the same stance, right? Just like we talked about, true equality holistically of what this would look like so that we can all come together as one.
I love that you said holistically because I really love holistic health, and I love the idea. Okay, tell me if this is true, but I think it is. If a man is around a woman for too long, he loses his divine masculine power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like he becomes fatigued in his masculinity. So primally, a man goes off for a while to go hunt the boar or the buffalo, and the woman stays at home with the kids, and then the man comes back, having used his legs to create libido, to create testosterone, running, having a chase, having a goal, and then comes back and provides. Like, that is so primally masculine, right?
Yeah.
And so for a man to remember, like, and a woman to remember, the man needs to go. He needs to go provide. He needs to do manly things, and specifically on a holistic level, use your legs. If you are lacking a sexual libido, go lift weights.
Mm-hmm.
Go create strength in your legs, because that's your biggest organ going to your penis, and that creates a strong man, right? Like, that's creating the right hormones to balance you and to keep you in that dopamine, testosterone, balanced level. Yeah. Like, on a health note as a man too, lift weights.
Yeah.
Go freaking climb up a mountain. Like, go freaking hunt a deer.
Yeah, well, it's movement holistically, right? But what we teach in masculine embodiment, it always goes back to the heart. Whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you're claiming to be, right? Whatever it is that you represent yourself as, it always goes back to the heart. In masculine practice, we teach men to, through breath work, to drop your heart down to your balls. Okay.
Elliot Hulse teaches that.
Yeah, and what we do in that is that grounds us, because while the feminine, and when I say feminine, it's not just women, let's just make that clear. The feminine, right, they're so flowing, they're so creative, they're so airy, right, like it's all over, which is beautiful. The masculine is the opposite, but that's where the balance comes in. Just like what the book will teach you in the Queen's Code, right? Mm-hmm. Men are very single focused.
Right.
Right? Let's say 1 to 20, there's 20 things on his mind, and maybe taking out the trash is number 19.
Yeah.
With women, they're like a ball of yarn.
Yes.
Right? There's so many things, and they say multitasking this or that. You can't ever, in my opinion, multitask, right?
Right.
You can't have your attention on two things. You may be able to do two things at once, but not have your attention on two things.
Right.
And so what we do in those types of situations, right, is from a woman's perspective, from a queen's perspective, it's, hey, babe, do you mind taking the trash out? Yeah, sure, babe. I'll get to it when I can. And just so you know, babe, the only reason I ask is because it gives me back more time so that I can get the laundry done and so that we can spend more time later on at night.
Yes.
And immediately that goes from level 18, 19 to 8 or 7.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, men always want to impress women. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter what they look like, men will always want to impress women. It's all around how are we effectively communicating. And we don't know that. We don't know how to effectively communicate as a society. That's where you see so many arguments, you see so much ego, you see so many people that are just running around angry and hating the world. Is because we don't know how to fully connect and create that space where we can really share what's actually on our heart. And to the exact point that you were saying, right? Like, you're very masculine, right?
Yeah.
You were saying.
Yeah.
Before we were talking, you're saying, well, my boyfriend, right? He's very in touch
Mm-hmm.
with his divine masculine, if you will, but I would also argue with his divine feminine.
Right.
Because what normally happens is when somebody is very highly masculine, they attract the opposite, which would be the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
You normally see that. Look at relationships, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can keep it that way, it still may work, right? But also you can try to treat it to where it becomes a balanced approach.
Yeah.
Where both of you are in your feminine and your masculine. It doesn't have to be that way for it to be successful though.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we're lacking. We don't have enough teachers to teach us how to do this.
And when me and my boyfriend are together, we're both so in tune with ourselves and so aware and conscious to a degree that we naturally know how to dance and flow with each other. When he's embracing his feminine, I like go into my masculine. It's just like this intuitive dance that we don't even think about. It just flows.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to witness. It's like just showing how divine and magical everything is, and we are. You know?
Yeah, that's why like John Wineland. I don't know if you're familiar with his work or not, but he works a lot with David Data. So John Wineland is a disciple of David Data, and he teaches a lot of masculine and feminine embodiment. And I love his practices because we talked about building the cake and creating it and then having the frosting. Well, what if you could literally have the same type of experience without any physical touch?
Yeah.
And our society has no idea what that looks like, feels like, how to even do it, where to even look for it. And we don't have the patience. Back to your point, we're all full of quick gratification.
Yep.
But it's like, why? Like, we need to stop this paradigm of we just need to get it and then leave it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we need to stop just consuming as much as we can. And I know that word is also a trigger word for many people, but we need to stop that to a very large degree so that we can come back together as humans, right?
Yes.
We come back together as humanity and connect, because you can have the same sexual connecting experience without any physical touch, just purely through heart-centered connectedness.
It's so true. And I've been through it for the first time in my life. And it's true, you guys, it's true. It's not just a myth. It's not just in the movies. Like, it actually exists. It's so beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And that goes back to, like, maintain your boundaries and, anything. If everything's such a quick fix and we're all impatient, that's not enabling gratitude. Gratitude is actually an art that's, like, disintegrating because everything is so fast. Oh my gosh, the Wi-Fi is taking longer than 12 seconds. Like, I'm gonna freak, you know? And I'm not trying to say that I'm above this. I actually really need to work on my patience, and I am consciously working on it. But baking a cake, taking the time to mix it to make sure there's not any clumps, taking the time to create and cook dinner at home, buying the ingredients, cleaning it up, going back to our roots of, like, good things take time. And you feel grateful. You feel like it's more valuable because you took the time to make it. You took the time to buy the ingredients. You took the time to drive a little extra further to go support your local farmer, to go get the right ingredients because you value yourself. You value and respect yourself and all the consumers in your house and everything, and that starts to snowball on everything. You respect, value, taking the time for quality. So yeah, not dipping into the frosting. That's a shortcut. Like, you're missing the whole point of it. What do you want in life? And I think we all want love, solid love, progression with the love, and maybe a family unit. You know, whether it's you, your man, and your cat, or literally a family. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is the best relationship that you're ever gonna have is with yourself.
Yeah.
Right, because that's where it all starts. Like I feel really bad for I shouldn't even say bad. I just really feel for people that really they feel like they're alone, because that means you're not valuing yourself. That you will always, above all else, always have yourself. You always have, God if you believe in God, Jesus, a higher power source, whatever it is that you believe in. That's also always there with you.
True.
And I think that's something that we also need to bring conscious awareness to. But it's so interesting because I've seen this from the spiritual community multiple times where they are degrading other people because they're not quote unquote awake yet.
Right.
It's like, are you really serving them? Are we really helping them by degrading them? Right? Do you really think that you're above them when you're acting the same way that they are? Some of these unwoke people have larger consciousness of their heart space than you do.
True.
Yet you're degrading them, right? And so we have that ability of really just being honest with ourselves. That's why I like Darrick White. He wrote the book called Emergence and many others. But he teaches you to embrace more of your shadow. He does a lot of shadow work. And similar to your point, right, is she's like, Darrick, I'm direct, I'm blunt, and I'm out there, and I'm like, great, right? Because we need more people to be who they really are. We're so afraid of offending people nowadays that we can't really speak our true mind. And if you look at that from our throat chakra perspective, we just close up.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to share our truth because we don't want to offend other people. Then it turns into people pleasing because we don't want to offend them and we just want them to like us.
Yeah.
It's like, no, fucking be who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right? Say what you need to say. And if they're offended, that's on them.
Yeah.
I say this all the time, like in my relationship, as well as when I'm helping other people in their relationships, right? And this is my area of improvement too, is my delivery of this, because I can also be direct, is I cannot make you feel any other way.
Yeah.
You are choosing how you make you feel. Now, what I do can influence you.
Yeah.
But it's still ultimately your choice at the end of the day.
Yeah. Don't give away your power and think that it's not your choice.
Yeah, all of us have given our power away so many times, in multiple different ways, right? An example, 3 to 6, I was sexually molested and abused, right? I didn't know then, consciously, what I know now, but I was giving my power away. And guess what? I reclaimed that shit, right? At the age of 33, I reclaimed all of that power because I didn't know how to do it then. But I was meant to experience that. Right? Just like another really big trigger for a lot of women is I forget her name, but she was raped by 8 different men. And she chose over a series of work and healing and modalities and so much trauma that took place to turn that into a power, right? I couldn't even imagine being in that type of situation. But just to think of the power that she has, like the true genuine love that she has in her heart to overcome that and still be here in this physical experience, that's leadership. That's a queen right there. And not to say if you're not doing that, you're not a queen, because as a woman, because you have that ability in you. It's just a matter of if you choose to do it. Just like when you wake up, you can eat a done-for donut, or you can eat or have a smoothie or an apple or a banana. Your choice is everything that you're doing, right? And so we have the same in everything that we're doing, and you're going to find a common theme through all of this. It all correlates. Just like they say in Lion King, right? It's the circle of life. Like everything correlates with each other, and that's why we need so many different dynamics of life.
I love that. Damn, you're good. Okay. So just to get back, just a big point of how to communicate effectively within all your relationships, whether it's with your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or at work or with your kids. I have a friend and she was working at this therapy clinic in Hawaii, and she taught it to me, and it literally was such a game changer to me. But it's R, F, and R. So you go, I recognize blank. So I recognize this situation triggered me. I feel about this situation blank. I need this in order to feel better, and I request blank to help me. I might have butchered that a little bit, but it's just, instead of pointing the fingers of like, you all of a sudden quick defense. But if you put it on, how does it make you feel? It's making, I recognize this, it makes me feel like this, I really need this in order to feel better, and I request that maybe you do this, can you do that for me? And then people are in their yin energy when people are talking to them, being like, because we want to help each other.
Yeah.
We all feel better when we're giving service. So if you were triggering me, but I put it all on me, like, hey, it's not you, but this is me. This is what I recognize, this is what I feel, this is what I need. Can you help me? Then people are like, yeah, I want to help you. Like, that totally makes sense. It's putting a person in a position to easily be more empathetic, which we all have, because we do all have this heart frequency, and it's activating that heart space, that chakra, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's such a game changer. Put it on you.
I think the last two are the hardest, right? How can we tell them what we need if we don't know what we need?
Yeah.
And how can we request that from them when we have such a hard time speaking to our needs?
Right.
I think even also the reflection piece, right? Recognizing it. That's a very difficult thing to do too, because how honest are we really being with ourselves? Because we're always going to be biased to ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that acronym is incredibly powerful, especially if executed upon effectively, because if we do that in every single one of our conversations,
yeah,
especially the difficult conversations,
yeah,
that's what's going to bring tremendous amount of value to the relationship.
Oh yeah.
Me and my queen, we talk about this often, right? We use this as an example when we're speaking to other people in this regard. Is we've had a lot of difficult conversations, many, right? Some real serious shit. And it's not that I wanted to have them, it's not that she wanted to have them, but we had to have them. We are closer now because of it, right? And we identified, what is it that I'm feeling? Why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
What is it that I need, right? And so when it comes to effective communicating, the first thing that I would say is just start.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we hold back so much,
yeah,
then it just bottles everything up, and then we don't know how to fix our thoughts, and then we just have that foggy mind.
Yeah.
Write them down, journal them,
yes,
right? Put them to paper, put them into your phone.
Talk it out loud to yourself.
Exactly, like we all talk to each other, right? Like,
yeah,
or to ourselves. Like, we're always doing that. Like, if you need to have that conversation in the shower, have the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But make sure you have it. It's a form of integrity, and more than anything, people value that integrity above all else, right? Even if it's a hard thing and people may not agree with it, they're still gonna look back and be like, she did it.
Yeah.
Like, I have to respect her because she did it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I don't like what she's saying, but it happened.
Yeah.
And at the end, that's what brings strangers closer together.
Yeah.
That's what brings relationships closer together, right?
Yeah.
But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to have the conversation because you're gonna hurt them.
Yeah.
That's not your responsibility. That's theirs.
Yeah.
You know, and so your responsibility is to have the conversation in the most mature way you possibly can.
Yeah.
And if you can't be mature about it, use those additional outlets, right? Write them down, journal them, document them, whatever that looks like, until you can get to a point where you feel like it is mature enough.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a huge thing that's lacking in our society is emotional IQ.
Oh.
We're far too reactive, and we need to look at it from a response, not a reaction type of state of mind, right?
Right.
And sit down and think before we talk.
Yeah. There was a time, it was a year and a half ago, and I just hit such a rock bottom, and I was craving weird things. I didn't feel like me. I was craving and searching for things, and I'm like, what the freak is wrong with me? So I start journaling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm really sad because I felt used and just by this guy.
Yeah.
And it was just like my last straw. And I was like, oh, I think that made me sad. But I was so tuned out of my emotions, probably from me growing up and not feeling like I have a consistent place to go to and be safe in my emotions, that I have been so checked out of my emotions that then I don't know what I need. And I was like, I think I'm sad. Oh my gosh, I'm sad. Okay, well, why are you sad? And it's just talking to my little girl of like, how do you feel? Your feelings are valid. What triggered you? And it's just going from that place of like, my feelings are valid and explore them.
You were numb, right? And
I was numb.
We numb ourselves to so many things. We talk about social media, TV, substances, right? Like it's very similar to like shrooms.
Right.
A lot of spiritual individuals that are in the community, they say, I'm gonna go on a trip this weekend or whatever the case is, and they think that they're getting more enlightened because of these trips, right? It's like, well, what happens when you're not on the trip?
Yeah.
That's where the true spiritual enlightenment takes place.
Yep.
In everyday life, not
Yep.
when you're on a substance. Now, again, they can be beneficial. I'm not against any of that. I'm just saying the true testament of your spiritual IQ or well-being is in your everyday life,
So true.
right? In everything that you're doing, because it's always that one thing that we don't see.
Yep.
Right. That's what I've learned from life. We think it's something, and it's always something completely opposite of what we thought it was.
So true.
And that's where we learn the lesson. That's why we learn lessons through reactivity, right? Like, I didn't want to yell at that person, but because I'm only learning it because I've already done it, and I'm now reacting or reactive to that situation. I can play it back in my mind. If I knew that ahead of time, I wouldn't have fucking done it.
Yeah.
But you needed to do that in order to learn the lesson.
Right.
The trick is how do you take that situation in that moment, that present moment, and prevent that interaction, if that's what you're wanting,
Right.
into your future.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same people that are like, I want this, I want that. Then what are you doing?
Yeah.
You've been not doing whatever that case may be for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Your role right now is for you to make that choice and change and adapt and develop and get the resources and get the money.
Yeah.
Right? It's so crazy to me, especially with coaching, when people are like, they say, I don't have the money.
Uh-huh.
They do not realize how abundant they truly are.
Yeah.
One of my mentors, she said this to me. She said, Darrick, especially with women, but she said, Darrick, they will always find a way to get the money.
Yeah.
And it's not even about the money.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's really not about it. It's about everything else that comes with it, the life-changing experiences, the camaraderie, the communion, right, the development, and then how they use that to go and further other progressive states with other individuals for humanity, you know. It's almost invaluable, but like we obviously put an amount to it, but people are so limited in their thinking that stops them from progressing.
Yeah. I think they're lacking faith.
Absolutely.
That what you put in, you get out. If not, times 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think everyone, or most people, are in a fear state.
Oh, absolutely.
And we need to transcend past that with more faith.
We are too, right?
Yeah.
Like, sister, we can talk about this for hours of how many times we've been in fear.
Yeah.
And when we don't recognize that we are, and then later on, 2 years later, we're like, holy shit, I was completely in fear.
Right.
Right? Like, it's just the way of life. It's just what it is. But that's where we can all come together and help each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, invest in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm talking to myself too, because there is a little bit of fear and lack around money. I'll just admit that straight up. So, I really want to get into archetypes.
Okay.
I have briefly learned about them, and I find it very intriguing. But if you could just give us a rundown of archetypes.
Yeah, so there's actually also a really good book out there. It's literally labeled King, Warrior, Lover, and Magician. I may have those mixed up, but I believe Robert Bly is the author of this book. So if you want to dive deeper into it, you can. And again, I'm no expert in archetypes, but I've been dabbling a lot more into the capacity of what this is. An example of this is my archetype is very much warrior type archetype, right? Now what you also find is there's always an opposite. There's always a shadow that comes with every single one of the archetypes that take place. And again, there's far more people that know far more than I even know, right? But the basic concept is that it rolls under 4 key pillars: King, Warrior, Lover, and Magician. And you utilize all of them to a certain degree, depending on what is taking place in your current life. So what you'll identify is a lot of people that would claim men to be very feminine, they are far more in their lover magician archetype. Where other men would say, oh, he's just like one badass motherfucker. They're going to see him more in the warrior or the king archetype. Now it's interesting, the word king, because we also often think if there's a king archetype, then that's the all-encompassing archetype. That's not true. You can very much lead in multiple capacities within your lover archetype. That's where if you go to, like, let's say a spiritual immersion or a workshop, there's the few guys or that one guy, most likely the teacher, where he's so fully embodied that you can't even tell what type of archetype he's in, right? And majority of the time he's in his lover magician, and he utilizes it in multiple different forms and facets. There's also, even if you want to dabble in this and you're into like oracle cards, tarot cards, etc., it's called the Hero Rise deck. It is out there, and it just gives you a full description of all these different card types that you can utilize when you're pulling for any type of reason, and it dives into more of the shadows, right? An example of this is my warrior archetype, which has been very present my entire life because I've had to survive as much as I thought I've had to survive majority of my whole life with everything I've experienced, is my shadow. It's actually known as, and I've named it, is known as bitch ass. And what I had to do with bitch ass, right, is I had to bring bitch ass to the front. This is known as the 3-2-1 process. And what you do is that you bring your shadow directly to the front of you. And normally your intuition is going to give you the feeling, the information, the demographic of what this looks like. Now, what my shadow, in this case, tied to my warrior archetype looked like was like a Yoda, but it was all in a black robe. I couldn't see his face. And this individual, the shadow, will communicate with you, very, very similar like inner child work, right? And what takes place is that after you identify what that is, you step into that shadow. Once you step into that shadow, right, then you start to speak to yourself, right, in regards to why are you even here? And that's the whole purpose, is identifying why bitch ass in this case for me was even here in the first place. And the whole purpose of why I have bitch ass in my life, which bitch ass is the formation and lives and breathes lack of worth and lack of power and purpose. That's the opposite. That's my shadow. And so what he's here to teach me is that my heart is full of love, and my job is to share my heart with the world, specifically with men. So especially those men that are like those hard ass, like big, rough, gruff individuals, they have the most delicate and kindest hearts within them. And my job is to help bring that out in those men, while helping the opposite, which would be the magician lover archetypes, to bring in more structure, to bring in more leadership, right? To bring in more decision making that's going to impact them, their families, and humanity on the highest level, right? So just a high level, I mean, that's pretty much the basis of what it is, right? And you could assume that lover, it has to do with your form of being heart-centered and really attracting and bringing in heart-centered connection, vulnerability, emotion, etc. Magician is very, very fun, right? It's where your creativity really lies too. So it's you identifying more of like, how can I really turn and influence this type of situation for the betterment of humanity? It could be in a small project, big project, it could be with your entrepreneurship, it could be with your podcast, it could be with anything that you want. But how do I think strategically and creatively to get the biggest bang for the buck, right? Warrior archetype, I always associate this with being the protector and the provider in that case, right? Because provider also correlates with the king archetype. But the warrior archetype is always ready for battle, right? But the warrior is only going to go to battle if their heart is connected and on the same page. There's no reason for the warrior to fight if he's disconnected from his heart. The king, right? The king archetype looks at everything from a bigger picture perspective, right? And this is the funny thing, is you see the king archetype in a healthy masculine is the men that know where they're going, where they want to do, they have a purpose, they have goals, they know what to do to get there. The shadow of a king is the boy, right? I talk about this often, where there's boys that are trapped in men's bodies. They look like a man on the exterior, but on the interior, they're still 13, 11, 12 years old. They're not mature enough yet. That's the shadow of the king, right? They're not ready to lead. They're not ready to step up. They're not ready to make big decisions that's going to impact the collective, right? So if we diagnose all four of them in a basic sense, that's the basics of it. But I do recommend checking out the book because it dives into every single one of the main archetypes, but then also dives into all of the shadow work and the shadow archetypes that come with it.
I highly recommend everyone reads this book.
Have you read it?
No.
Oh, but you will, I'm sure.
Including myself. But I really resonate with the archetypes because I think it helps an individual become so self-aware and self-conscious of like what things they do need to work on. If any book is going to help someone look at their shadows, I'm all about it. And I need to add this to the list. I have like 50,000 books I'm reading right now.
That's how it is, right? In development.
But no, the archetypes is such a beautiful thing to embrace, and I think it helps a person become whole, become self-aware as such a beautiful being on this planet. You speak so beautifully, and you get right to the point, and you're so great to have on here. I think we're gonna have to do a round two because I feel like there's so much more we can get into.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm always down.
Okay, cool. So put out all your information to everyone. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on all of the general platforms, right? So on Instagram, it's just Darrick White _, and I know I spell my name a little bit differently, so it's DARRICK, White like the color, and then _. Facebook, it's spelled just my name, DARRICK, White like the color, and then I do have my own website, which is DarrickWhiteCoaching.com. So if you want to check me out there, I'm always open for these types of conversations as well. So just to put that out there. I love learning, growing, and expanding. So by all means, if anyone ever wants to jump on and have a chat, I'm always game for that. So.
Freaking love it. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks for having me. Love you too.
Peace.